All right, this is question 17. We're getting towards the end now. And that asked us to say, return true if a certain name appears in a certain list, or false otherwise. Okay. So if I said to you, does the name Fred appear in the list? You'll say, oh, depends on the list. Or if I said, does a certain name appear in a list? You'll say, oh, well, that depends on both the list and the name. So in this case, we want two parameters, the name that we're looking for and the list that we're looking in. Okay, so we're going to def. We're going to say name appears in list, and we're going to this name and this list. Okay. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to assume that the name is not in the list. Okay, so we're gonna say found is false. We're going to use this new variable called. Oh, didn't mean to do that. We're going to have this new variable called found, and that's going to determine whether or not we find this name in this list. All right. Now we're going to go through the list now, one at a time, and we are going to see whether the name is in the list. Now, how do we go through each element in the list? We do a for loop. So for element in a list, and we're going to say if the element that we're looking at is equal to, so that's double equals, the name that we're looking for, then we're simply going to return true. Okay? So if it finds the element in the list, so if it finds this name in this list, then we simply return true, and it will finish and return true. Otherwise, it's going to return false. We don't actually need that then. Okay. So here, once we've been through all of the list, all of the elements in the list, if we get to the point where the cursor is now on line 162, we know that this line on 161 has not happened, because otherwise it would have returned. So here, if we get here, then we know that the name is not in the list, so we're going to return false at this point. So if we get here, we know that name was not in the list, hence we return false. Okay. So here we can say we have found name in the list, so return true. Okay. That's great. There is an easier way to do that. We could actually use the in operator itself. Okay, this is a special operator that determines whether or not something is in a list. That's what it's being used for here. So this is fine, absolutely fine, but Python already has this ability, so we could just say return name in a list. Okay? So name in a list is true or false depending on whether the name is in this list. So it would return true if name is in the list and return false otherwise. So this is a much quicker, nicer way to do it than manually go through the list one at a time to see whether it's in there. The code we had before, this is called a linear search, actually. It searches through linearly by looking at each element and deciding whether or not we found it or not. And if we do, we return true. If not, we've got to the end, we've looked at everything and it's not there, so we return false. This is a linear search. But as I said, Python has a nicer way to do it. We just say return name in a list. And that would give us our answer. So let's test that. So let's say our test list is, what should we have? Let's have some names in the list. Dave, George, Alan, print the result of the function name in list with our test list. And what are we searching for? Let's search for a name, some sort of name. Let's try Dave. So we're going to see whether or not Dave is in this list called test list. That's going to return true because there it is. Dave is in the list. So let's try that. And it does. It returns true. Okay, let's try David. Well, David. Oops, sorry. Dave. So the list, if the list is David, George, Alan, Fred, then Dave is not in the list because Dave and David are two different strings. So this is going to return false. And there we go.